Hi, I'm Merrit. Join Grant Fritchey and I today as he takes us through capturing query metrics in Azure SQL Database on today's episode of Data Exposed MVP Edition. Join Grant Fritchey and I as he takes us through capturing query metrics in Azure SQL Database. I'm your guest host, Merrit, and welcome to this edition of Data Exposed MVP Edition. Today, I'm joined by Grant Fritchey, a data platform MVP since 2009. So let's get started, Grant, by telling me what you do.
Okay, thanks, Ree. Appreciate your time. Well, my name is Grant Fritchey. I work for Redgate Software. I'm a DevOps advocate for Redgate, so I spend a lot of time talking about DevOps. But in my spare time, what I like to do is query tuning. I'm a big query tuning nerd. I've got a book on execution plans that's worth checking out. And I just recently released a new version of my query tuning book for SQL Server 2022 and Azure SQL Database. In fact, Ree, speaking of nerd stuff and query tuning, I would love to show you some stuff that you can do with Azure SQL Database and capturing query metrics.
Absolutely. I'm all about Azure SQL. That's the team that I'm on. So go ahead, dive right in. Let's see what you got.
Okay, cool. Let's see if we can open it up. All right, so I'm starting off right here. This is just a little database I've got on the Azure portal, and this is built-in query metrics that are a part of Azure itself. There's nothing you have to do to turn this on. There's nothing you have to do to start collecting this data, and all you have to do to start navigating the data and taking a look at it is scroll down. So if you look all the way at the top up here, there's where you would open up inside of an Azure database. You just scroll down until you see Query Performance Insights. And then you can see the query performance right there. It's nice and simple. So immediately to our right, we've got top performing queries. And so this is showing queries over time, and you can sort by CPU, by data, if any are using up data, or log IO, if there's queries doing a lot of logging. You'll notice my system's on pretty low load right now, so there's not that much going on. But we can also see the long-running queries, and it's all available right here, and you can get really good information really quickly. If we click on one of these queries, it goes in, and it's using the query ID from Query Store to track this stuff down, and it's showing you the information. So this is an excellent way to go in and just see what's going on with queries inside your system. Now, you don't have a lot of control over this mechanism, but here's the good news. Azure being Azure, Azure SQL Database being Azure SQL Database, under the covers, deep down, I know deep down because on the surface it's very different, but under the covers, deep down, it's just SQL Server. And so if we take a look over here, I've got Management Studio open. I'm connected up to the same database. And I've got a really simple little query. It's doing this top 10. It's pulling in the query, the plan, the hash, logical reads, logical writes, and it's sorting it all by elapsed time. So you can see the top 10 longest running queries inside your system. Let's go ahead and execute that against my system. This is all, by the way, live stuff. I'm showing it to you now. And the results come back, and here are my top 10 queries. And I've got the execution plan, I've got the full execution count, all of the elapsed time, all of the information that you would normally want to see. It's all right there and available to you through the DMVs. So you've got that capability of looking at the information through the Azure portal, which is great. You've got the information to query the DMVs, which is also great. But I've got more for you. The thing is Query Store also works inside of Azure SQL Database. In fact, just like SQL Server 2022, Azure SQL Database has got Query Store enabled by default. So you would have to turn it off in order to not be able to use it inside of Azure SQL Database. It's always on in there, to quote a phrase. But here's the key. You actually do want to leave it on, because not only can you capture query metrics, which I'm going to show you here in a second, but more importantly, you can take advantage of all of the automated functionality around automatic index tuning, automatic last good plan, all of those things built into Azure SQL Database that makes query performance tuning so much better, are all dependent upon Query Store. So you're probably going to want to leave it enabled anyway, unless you know that you're having issues with it. And very few people I know of have ever had any issues with Query Store inside of Azure SQL Database. So plan on having it enabled. Even though you don't have to do anything, it's already there for you. So what I've got here is this is when we're recording this at 2023-01, 12:39. So I'm going to run this query, and this, again, it's just going to the Query Store. It's pulling some information from the Query Store stats. It's getting some weight stats, and it's looking at it all in the interval between the time period that I'm asking for. So I'm asking for this particular time, and it's going to go in there and find for that query ID number 66, because I live right on Route 66 now, so I had to find a query that had that ID. So this query comes back, and again, we're looking at the same stuff. Now, the one thing I love about Query Store is, sure, you get execution plans, which is great. You get the number of executions, which is great. You get, your average duration, but you also get the standard deviation on the duration. And why is this important? Because knowing the average is great, but knowing how much it varies over time through the standard deviation gives you additional information that you didn't have before. It's stuff that you don't get from the DMVs. So this is some additional information that would not be easy to track down for you otherwise. So it's just worth bringing out and mentioning, because you want to know how these queries are behaving. So that's what now 3. Go through the portal, run your own DMV queries, or you can run Query Store. Well, I got one more for you. And this one's my favorite. You can actually run extended events inside of Azure SQL Database. And so you'll notice I've got here a couple of ones running. Live data test, query performance, SQL monitor session. I've also got this other test that I was running. But those are actually running inside of Azure SQL Database. But there is a little bit of a catch to it. Let's go back over here to the editor and take a look at this. Now, this is the code to create an event session. There's nothing to it. Create event session, give it a name. Make sure you say on database, because we're on Azure. If it was not on Azure, let's say we're in managed instance or on a VM or a container, you would say on server. But because we're on Azure SQL Database, you're saying on database. Worth mentioning, I'll even bring it over here again. So you'll notice I was under Ham Shack Radio, my database name. That's where the extended events live, not under management, which is where they would normally be inside of a server running in a container or in a VM or on real hardware. So there is actual physical, visual differences as well as behavioral differences. All right, so I want to look at just a few things. I want to look at RPC completed for any kind of stored procedure activity. I want to look at SQL batch completed for batches. And I want to track recompiles. Now, in addition to this, I'm going to skip this next line for a second. I'm turning on causality. You can see it right there. So by turning on causality tracking, when a recompile occurs, that recompile event is going to be matched to the SQL batch or RPC completed event. Frequently, if I'm doing recompile captures, I will add in statement level captures as well. I'm keeping it simple here just for demo purposes, but I would add that in normally. And now, the one thing that we have to do to make this all work inside of Azure is I do have to output to blob storage in Azure. What that means is a couple of things. One, you can't have a query TV up. Query TV is when you turn on extended events and watch the live data window and see the queries going by. Instead, what I'm doing is, we'll switch back over here to my browser. I'm outputting to this file here inside of Azure Storage. So it's pulling that stuff together. Here, let me, let's go, well, let's just go home. And storage counts. There we go. Extended events output. There we are. And containers. Awesome. So this is my container, and you'll see I've got a number of extended events that have outputted. Now, if you want to look at this stuff, you can download it real time. You don't have to. wait until it rolls over or completes, you could click on any one of these, open it up, and then hit download. And obviously you could use PowerShell to download it or whatever. But if we switch back over here to Management Studio, I've already downloaded one and I've got it available right here. And so you can see that this has got all of the SQL batch and RPC completed, all of the information from Azure SQL Database, the same as if it was running against a normal, not normal, but a database on a container or in a VM. So it's the same idea. We can see the object name. If we were looking at the batch, we can look at the batch text. We can look at, I don't know, let's just throw in duration. Show the durations, and further we can do something fun. Once we've got all the stuff in this file and we've got it available here, we can, let's get you down here where I can see it. If we take a look at, we've got the ability to group this information. So I hit grouping and I can say, okay, by batch text. We'll group by batch text. So now all of my batches are grouped. And so you can see I've got some that don't have batch text. Those are the RPC completed ones. And we could group those by object name, or we could group those by other things. The things you can do with this are out of this world, but we're just going to keep it real simple right now and group by that. And now that it's grouped by, I'm going to aggregate. So going to average, go in here, find the duration, and say, give me the average duration. And so now, a little adjustment to the screen, and so we can see it. Now we can see the average duration on my batches were null is this, but say for this query where I've got 5 different executions, I can see the average execution time across all the different 5 executions. And so all of this functionality is built right into Azure. It's a fundamental part of Azure, and so it gives us, again, those 4 different mechanisms. We can go from the user interface right here inside of the portal. We can go from any of the DMVs that we're used to using. We can take advantage of Query Store, which is right there by default. And with a little bit of setup to get that Azure storage, we can then take advantage of extended events. So that gives us 4 different ways to capture query metrics inside of Azure SQL Database. So then we can start doing query tuning. That's the fun stuff.
So I do have a question for you.
Okay.
So you talked about capturing metrics in Azure SQL. Why is that valuable to a company?
Well, here's the thing. Azure SQL Database has got performance tuning built into it. It's going to do all kinds of really cool things for you. It's going to create indexes for you. It can drop some indexes. It won't drop any unique index ever, but it can help you with query tuning, and it can do a lot for you. The problem you're going to run into is that it can't do everything. And you are still going to have to do some fundamental, good old school query tuning. And the reason you care about that in Azure, and just quite frankly, is it can save you money. I know what's coming. It can save right? you money. It can save you money because you can if you run your queries faster, you can go to a lower tier and be better off. So I mean, it's a great way to go.
I actually I often tell DBAs that once you move to Azure, tuning queries becomes a quantifiable part of your job. That DBA can say, here is where I saved you money because I made this run faster. So valuable stuff here, Grant.
Well, thanks. But that's like I said, I get pretty excited about query tuning.
That's true. I can confirm. So everybody, Grant, thanks so much for talking to us today about capturing query metrics in Azure SQL Database. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for tuning in. You can find links and more details in the description below, and we will see all of you on the next edition of Data Exposed MVP Edition.